So we have a lot of unlearning to do. But the thing about that is that there are incredible gifts and treasures that can be unveiled once we begin that process of that unlearning, all those toxic scripts. Then we begin to see who we really are. And we begin to free ourselves. It's like we're bound, we're constrained, and we have to burst out of those constraints that were laid by oppression on the basis of sex, on the basis of racialized caste, on class, religious doctrine, gender codes. Be who you are. Be free to be who you are. And be careful not to afflict others with that which has wounded you.
A world that is faced with making decisions without sufficient information, which is becoming more and more the case now with climate change and so on. It is to our collective detriment that we're not taking advantage of abilities that people have that can help us navigate how to get out of this mess that we're in. So we have a resource. We have a human and a national and an international resource that we're not using very well, and we should. That's become somewhat more interesting and more motivational for me to try to break the taboo. And I think it is possible to break the taboo. Because, if we had done this interview 10 years ago, and I would say that in 10 years, marijuana would be legal and same-sex marriage would be legal everywhere in most of the developed world, that would sound crazy.
Yes, and what I would encourage people to do is just ask themselves, with whatever their life situation is, remove yourself from society, your family, your friends, fuck all of that. And be like, what do I want? What makes me happy? And how can I pursue that in a way that's like safe and respectful to all people and true to myself? And it's like, hey, you have to jump into the void. You have to go out on a limb and you don't know if it's going to work. But if you're committed to it and you feel like strong and confident because you know what you want and you're allowed to want what you want and you're allowed to have what you want and to express yourself, that's going to help you build that confidence, because you're like, who is anyone else to tell me that I'm not allowed to wear an all red outfit on my period or throw a party called on my period? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just kind of like, hey, fuck it. I'm just going to do it. And seems to be working out.
I don't necessarily myself identify as a witch, but I do feel like an other. I wouldn't say I have a name for what I am. I don't personally like labels that much, I think. With what I am, I don't feel like there's a word for it. Maybe the word conscious could be a good word for how I feel. And someone that's trying to go into society with open eyes and not listen to society as a whole, of what dictatorships tell us, what governments tell us, to question everything, to look to your own self for solutions rather than the outside world. I don't trust what society has to say a lot of the time, and I find going back into spiritual teachings, books from the past, learning from indigenous cultures, looking at the way shamans were and going back to the old ways, that for me feels like the way forward to look back.
Any more earth-honoring tradition I've been involved in tends to recognize that each individual comes to the world with certain, destiny, will, original instructions, personal medicine, however you want to frame it. And what it means is the tradition or even the practices that are right for one person might not be the right practices for somebody else. Another way of saying it is each person in your course, you, me, has a moral responsibility, ethical imperative to be themselves. Like, you need to do you in particular. And if you're not sure what it looks like to do you, then let the question totally haunt you and ask for help in getting clear about it.
But I feel like I became just the walking wound. So talking about the witch wound, I really feel like I became just the personification, the embodiment of only the wound. Not just my lifetime, but all the different lifetimes that I had, and my family, and my mother, and my grandmother. And I just walked the earth as that wound. I couldn't speak except for to sing. So I sang to plants. But when I saw humans, I did not feel like I could talk to them. I felt my vagina was like knitting itself shut. That was the feeling that I had. And I would just, some days, just curl up in a ball and let the jungle fall over me. There were many different times where I would be in maybe a town or another place, and people would make fun of me. People did not understand me, and I wanted to be very sacred with earth, and I felt very misunderstood, that I felt that time just feeling like I wanted to die.
There's no ritual I can do that's going to make everyone realize that by virtue of being born and alive on the planet, you have worth and you should be here. Your birthright is love and safety. That's hard, because even right now, that makes me feel like I should hit pause and like go weep for all of us. That's really hard. But I will still say, even within that, even within like feeling like, you know, I want to cry because I feel so powerless. If I'm gonna trust that we can heal this planet and we can heal this witch wound and we can heal ourselves, I can still cry, but I have to get up and keep doing work. Even if I'm crying sometimes while I'm doing the work, that's still healing. That's still healing.
And for those of us who have any kind of settler or colonial background, heritage, there's so much grieving for that loss. I think of that grieving is the medicine for grasping. And so I really see this wound showing up as grasping. And so if we're not tending to the grieving of our lost ancestral wisdom, we grasp outside of ourselves, outside of our own tradition. And of course, I mean, this is a major energetic force behind appropriation. But this wound is a deep one. And so we see this in, you know, the fields that we work in, that there's this deep grieving that's not tended to. And so it shows up as grasping.
And I ask them to say the name of a loved one breath for each syllable. And as they're saying it with their eyes closed, to think about that person wherever they are, as far away as they are, and sending your sound to them. Imagine that you're touching them, even if they're an ocean away. And so feeling that physical touch from your community, the people around you, and you sending your energetic touch to a loved one. It's immediate. For some people, it's just immediate, like, you know, they just let go. I mean, it's just, and I start the workshop with this. I speak a bit and I start, and it's like, walls are broken, and like, you know, they're emotional. They're just, and everyone in the room can feel it. And also the voice that comes out from those broken walls, and like the voice that comes out of those cracks is so beautiful and so heartfelt. And that just sets a tone for the rest of our work together.
Like, healing doesn't have to be hard. Like, so often we've struggled so much. We've struggled so much over the course of our lifetimes, over the course of generations and ancestral trauma and everything, that there's this feeling inside of many of us that our struggle is still to come. Like, that we're never going to be out of this struggle, and that this healing is also going to have to be a struggle. But that's not true. Healing doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to take time. It doesn't have to be hard. Like, is really what it comes down to. And so allowing our mindsets to even shift into the, like, healing can be fast, healing can be fun, healing can be like supportive and loving and nurturing. It doesn't have to be like traumatic and like, you know, what you see in horror movies, basically, like going through a whole exorcism, basically.
Wait for the time that no one's going to have an opinion about what you do, or everyone's going to appreciate it. You might never live your life. And I just think we can do better. Yeah. We're so capable. Like, everyone watching this is so gifted. Everyone who's interested in this topic and wants to dig into it already has magic.
Right. You're in flow.
You're already it. You're done. And so I'm feeling like there is a that there's going to be a disbanding and a breaking down of the idea of shame and silence. And that can be something we can, this program came at the right time, because this is the ultimate deprogramming about overculture and society dictating how you look, act, feel, and participate.